In our desperation to avoid bad headlines, we've closed off the avenues for debate that are the lifeblood of our party. Our changes in policy and direction seem arbitrary and startling. Our own members, our supporters and the broader community are blindsided when hotly contested internal debates become public only after their resolution and when apparently there is unanimous agreement. Even factional meetings, for a time the home of that vigorous debate no longer welcome in broader party forums, have fallen victim to the same disease. Ladies and gentlemen, the principles of caucus unity and consistency with the party platform have historically meant that the decisions of the party, once debated and resolved, are abided by. They have not meant, and ought not to mean, an absence of debate or the appearance of an absence of debate. Labor needs to get better at explaining what solidarity and unity really mean, both to the general public and to those within the party who have come to interpret it as acquiescence. Loyalty means staying true to Labor's principles, not to a media management strategy or to political spin. In a healthy democracy, all voices are heard. In a healthy political party, all voices are heard. Labor has long known that unity is strength, but debate is not disunity. Debate is diversity. And if unity is Labor's strength, diversity is Labor's wealth. The broad church of the ALP has always been a testing and proving ground for our ideas and policies. Our greatest politicians were trained and sometimes humbled in branch and league debates, on conference floor, in lounge rooms and backyards. Our members questioned and they argued, and in those discussions sometimes minds were changed and sometimes policies were. Now, we commission focus groups to find out not just what people think of what we say, but all too often what we should be saying at all. There's nothing wrong with using polling and focus groups to test advertising strategies, explore misunderstandings of or misapprehensions about our policies, or to focus and sharpen what we say about what we believe. There is, however, something deeply wrong when we use polling to determine our party's policies and even our values. Labor must never forget that you do not earn the right to lead by perfecting the art of following. In the past, our culture of vibrant debate strengthened our party and it strengthened our policies. It has provided opportunities for generations of activists to work for change within a party of government and not from the sidelines of the political process. It has been an enriching and rewarding experience for those who participate. Stifling that debate in the name of expediency, urgency, or unity stifles the very aspects of our party we most need to draw on to face the emerging challenges of 21st century democracy. In recent decades, the Labor Party has met the challenges of a media focus on national and state level campaigning with an increasing corporatisation of our campaign and party organisation. It is essential now that the ALP recognises that the political climate that gave rise to these strategies has changed. Recent political campaigns overseas and the success of third-party organisations in Australia have shown that we are in an age of internet democracy, self-organising, intolerant of top-down management, expecting interactivity and immediacy. Authenticity has, I believe, come to be valued more by the citizens of our democracy than the appearance of harmony. And from a purely practical standpoint, with the increased interactivity of communications, there are more and more opportunities for pre-planned communication strategies to be exposed and their hollowness revealed. Staying on message is no longer enough. Our party and those who represent it must engage intelligently with the message. Party discipline is essential when it comes to legislative votes, but it was never intended to be used to block parliamentarians from talking to their constituents about their decisions and their opinions. If they are trusted enough by the party to be chosen as parliamentary representatives, they ought to be trusted enough to speak aloud in public without a pre-scripted song sheet of lines of the day. Labor must engage with the challenges of the new media and with the shift in community expectations it has brought. It is no longer feasible from a purely practical standpoint to control and manage centrally all public engagement by all Labor's public figures. In the 21st century, no organisation can successfully do so, and attempts to try simply ensure that the inevitable failure becomes a bigger and more negative news story than the mere existence of a variety of opinions would ever merit. What should be a positive for the ALP, the fact that we are made up of men and women who are both passionate about positive reform and practical about the need to work together to achieve it, becomes a negative by our own decision to pretend our entire membership shares one idea and one only on any given issue of the day. The problem is compounded by the uncoupling of the ALP's factions from policy positions or ideals. As Neville said on the weekend, the factions are now more focused on internal power rather than policy development. And I've said so often before, and I say again now, there is nothing wrong with people who have the same goals working together to achieve them. Factions are older than political parties. They were found in the Roman Senate and at the court of Queen Elizabeth I. However, when factions become mutual support associations divorced from ideas and devoted purely to securing promotion, they are toxic. And I've been as much a part of the ALP's factional system as anybody. I am, unlike Neville Wran, a product of the ALP's factions, and I have at times put the short-term benefit of the stability that good factional management can provide before the long-term benefits of vibrant diversity within the party. But I sincerely hope I have never been guilty of putting factional interests ahead of Labor's interests. Factional management can serve Labor's interests, as the elevation of Neville Wran to the leadership of the New South Wales Parliamentary Party shows. Then factional leaders set aside narrow interests and cooperated in making sure the man who would become such a successful Premier had the chance to lead the party to victory. The membership of the party branches in his electorate of Bass Hill cooperated because they were consulted. They were treated seriously. They knew what was at stake. I can think of nothing more telling of the state of the party today than the fact that in Neville's own assessment and in the assessment of others, he could never get pre-selected in today's Labor Party because of the role and influence of the factions and the way that influence is exercised. Ladies and gentlemen, the Australian Labor Party has recently returned some of the worst election results in its history, and we have a long history. No Labor loyalist should be in denial over the magnitude and significance of our loss in New South Wales. And no serious and genuine analysis can fail to conclude that the massive repudiation of Labor at polling booths right across our state reinforces in the starkest possible terms the message that the party has problems and those problems must be addressed and overcome if the ALP is to endure for another century. These problems are not confined to New South Wales, and given our federal structure, the problems of state branches have a fundamental and unavoidable impact on the ALP at a national level. We have, at a state and a federal level, looked at our dropping support, and more often than not, we've blamed the leader. And in New South Wales, more often than not, we've changed the leader. And it's time for the party to realise there is more amiss here than any one individual can be asked to shoulder the blame for. It is time for us to realise that we have significant problems as an organisation and we must resolve them. To do so, we must draw on the strongest and best traditions of our past, our passion for social and economic justice, for fairness, our history as champions of democratic processes within our party as well as in the wider political arena, and our commitment to reform. Labor has, for 120 years, been a party whose belief in the benefit of reform is applied to ourselves as well as to our nation's government. Each generation of Labor members, activists, politicians, supporters has needed to come to terms with the same question, mapping a course through a future unimagined by our party's founders while keeping our party's enduring values as the compass that guides us. Now we are engaged in resolving this question once again. The party's 2010 National Review has made several key recommendations, including expanding direct democracy within the party, providing more venues for debate and more avenues for activism, and giving more rather than fewer people a voice in the selection of our members of Parliament. In my opinion, and I believe in the opinion of many other members and supporters of our Labor Party, whatever specific changes are adopted, they must be guided by 5 key principles. Labor must be a party of values and ideas. We must have a growing, not a declining party. We must return real power to our members. We must engage and involve our supporters in the community, and Labor must have a culture of inclusion and innovation, not exclusion and unbridled factionalism. Ladies and gentlemen, Labor has always been a party of values and ideas. They may not always be fashionable, they may not always be popular, but they are the core of what we are, and they must be the touchstone against which we judge all our policies and all our strategy in government or in opposition. As Neville Wran has said, the Labor Party has survived as the oldest political party in the country because it stands for a principle. I had the experience of the campaigns during the Vietnam War. People didn't like us then, but we stood for something and we won. Even though we were beaten from time to time, we emerged with dignity and integrity. This is not to advocate a blind commitment to utter ideological purity at the expense of all else. As Gough Whitlam said, certainly the impotent are pure.